Good evening, Aman.
Hello, Tarandeep. How's it going?
It's good. How about you?
Doing good, doing good. Just giving a couple more minutes if anybody else wants to join, and then we'll get started.
Yeah.
By the way, this meeting, I'll try to record this in case people want to watch it offline later.
Yes.
Okay. Let's give a couple more minutes for people to join.
Just before starting session, I really want to say I really appreciate this session. Thank you, Aman. And sorry for disturbing you because you're not that well.
No worries at all. Yeah, I just posted on Discord in case somebody else wants to join, but yeah, otherwise we can just get started. Let's see. So sometimes because people get stuck in the Teams lobby or something. So, all right. So let's get started. Okay. Yeah. Well, as you know, I'm Aman Singh, maintainer of Drasi, and I'll be the primary mentor for this project under Google Summer of Code. And I like full time. I work on like the Azure incubations team. So I'm part of Microsoft Azure CTO's office, where I work as part of the incubations team. Now, this session, I'll try to split it evenly between the presentation and looks like there's a couple more folks joining in. Hello, everyone.
Hi.
Okay, so yeah, so I was just getting started. So let's get started with the agenda here. So yeah, thank you for joining and thank you for your interest in Drasi. Uh, as I was saying, I am Aman Singh. I guess we've met earlier in the last office hour session, but I'm a Drasi maintainer and I work on the Azure incubations team within the Azure CTO's office at Microsoft. And this Google Summer of Code project involves two CNCF projects together. One is Drasi, the other is Dapr agents. So yeah, let's try to split this session evenly between like some material that I'll try to cover, and then we can have like Q&A towards the end. So I'm also going to assume a little bit that you've read the proposal guide that I posted on Discord, and maybe you've also taken a look at the code bases of both the projects a little bit, so we can go a bit deeper, and then that can help you write a stronger proposal. Fun fact, I was also a GSOC student back in 2012, so it's been quite some time. That's at the risk of revealing my age, but yeah. All right, so yeah, let's get started. As I said, I'm assuming that you've read the Discord guide, so I'll not try to repeat that what's there. But then, of course, you have questions, you can ask them. Now, in this session, I'll try to go into the underneath the architecture that underlies the project, the reason behind the project, why we are trying to do this, and then some of the design questions I'll try to keep open-ended because there's no right answer per se. You need to figure like you need to evaluate the multiple choices that you think could be used and list out the pros and cons and decide like which one you're gonna go with. And even if that's not the ideal one, we just want to see your thinking in the proposal, and then later when we start the project, we can decide which approach we want to take. All right, so yeah, let's get started then. Uh, let's talk a bit about like what are ambient agents, right? These are the core idea started by this blog post that was done on LangChain blog all the way back in January of 2025. So it's been a bit more than a year. So these agents are something that can run in the background, right? So this is in contrast to the agents that we typically encounter. So a lot of industry has been trying to use chat-based agents. So for example, you can open GitHub Copilot and try to chat with the agent, ask it questions, or maybe you can even go to chatgpt.com or Claude.com, etc. And you can ask them questions and they can answer back and so forth, right? So this is like a human and agent talking back and forth, right? So that involves a human at every step of the way. Now, the ambient agents are more like a background agents that are just running all the time, probably monitoring for some condition or some events to happen, and then acting only when some of the conditions or maybe conditions are violated or some of the meaningful changes happen, right? So they may or may not involve the human during that decision, but they don't need a human to be writing a prompt every single time. Now, these are event driven and they can basically sleep until needed and they can automatically act as well. Now, this Google Summer of Code project tries to make ambient agents possible by combining two different projects, Drasi and Dapr agents. Let's think about the core problem. Imagine that if you have about, let's say, 10,000 customers and you want an agent that notices whenever critical support tickets are opened in the system, right? So let's say you are running a support company, customer support company, and there's like people who are opening customer tickets. And whenever there's like a critical one, you want an agent to spin up and respond to that immediately. So there could be a couple of options there, right? So one could be just polling. So maybe you query the database every 10 seconds. So that basically means more than 100,000 queries per day for a single table. And then you're basically wasting a lot of compute when nothing has really changed, right? So maybe the other option could be to just increase the or reduce the polling frequency, right? So if we increase the interval between the subsequent poll. So that basically means that your the response time will increase, right? The other option could be persistent sockets. You could open a WebSocket connection or server-sent events connection, but now your container needs to be continuously up and running. So your agent needs to be running all the time um, and keep that connection alive, right? So you need to keep the WebSocket or the server-sent events connection alive and need to keep constantly listening, constantly need to listen to all of those events that are coming in. And that's where the sleep paradox comes in, right? So I think the solution is at the bottom, right? So we want something in the infrastructure that can watch the data that or the changes that are happening in the data, and then the agent is allowed to sleep. So now the infrastructure can watch for changes and wake up the agent when it's needed, right? So that's what we think Drasi plus Dapr agents enable when they're combined together. So let's think about the simple scenario like some of the people have previously identified, right? So I think Tarandeep here in the last office hours was posing a question that we already have the post pub sub reaction. So why don't we just use that, right? So uh, think of it this way, right? So this could be like the first milestone of the project to enable the static configuration where an agent can be configured to be launched based on events that are detected by Drasi, right? But even that for that, if you look at the existing pub/sub reaction, how does it work? So you need some manual wiring today, right? So you need to deploy the C# based reaction separately, and that needs to match the topic name with the agent, and then the agent needs to parse the raw JSON, right? So because there's no type support between the two projects at the moment. So what we are expecting is that after the milestone one is completed for the project, you can have something like this kind of decorator on the Dapr agent side, right? So you can just write this kind of simple code, and the IDE autocomplete works, and you have basically convention-based topics, and that's the developer experience gap that the milestone one is trying to solve. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. So, and if we think about it, right, so there's like 10 different steps that happen, right? So let's say at the beginning, we start with the database change, then the CDC detection happens of that particular change, Drasi's queries evaluate the changes, and then internally, there's a pub sub between the, so this is separate from the Dapr pub sub reaction, but internally between the query engine and the reaction engine, there's an internal pub sub, right? So the query will basically push its result if event to the pub sub. Now, this is where the reaction could come in, right? So uh, you could either tweak the existing pub sub reaction or you could build a new one. But basically, it needs to act on every single change event, provide the right formatting for the cloud event so that it is easily consumable by the Dapr agents framework. And it needs to publish to the appropriate topic. So this is the part that needs to be built for the first milestone. So the first four steps here exist already on the Drasi side. The final three steps here exists on the Dapr agent side. Perhaps we need to add this support for the Drasi trigger, but this is the core component that needs to be added for the milestone one. Just give me a second. Okay. All right. So, so yeah, so that makes sense for the first milestone. And then thereafter, what we can do is, yeah, so let's talk a bit about like the reaction that you'll build for the first milestone. So this is how the cloud event output could look like, right? So you need to set the source, the type ID, etc. And then you need to also define like how the topic names should work so that the Dapr agents can basically pick it up. And remember, in Drasi platform, we have the pydantic models are so basically the pydantic models for the Dapr agents can be derived from the type spec configuration that we have decided for the query output here in the Drasi platform. So this is the source of truth inside the type spec query output folder inside the Drasi platform repo. Okay, and on the Dapr agent side, we need to basically introduce this new Drasi trigger, and that's the decorator that we have, right? So that basically allows people to write this simpler mechanism, simpler kind of configuration here. So all we need like is this kind of decorator, which tells the Dapr agent that this is the particular topic that it should listen, and this is the particular pub sub, and that's the message model, right? So this is basically be giving them the native Python experience. So if you think about what the decorator actually does, right? So it's basically giving maybe 4 to 5 things. So first was the convention-based topic derivation. So there's no hard-coded topic strings. It also gives the cloud event source validation. It verifies that the source is matching the expected query output. And then the deserialization into the Pydantic Drasi's change event kind of model here, right? Uh, Perhaps we can also think about deduplication using the cloud event ID, because if there's an at least once delivery guarantee, so you might have duplicate events. And in the advanced case, like this is not mandatory, but you can also think about like dead letter topic configuration for failed messages, etc. So it's still a thin wrapper, but the conventions and the validations and the type injection are what makes the developer experience better on the Dapr agent side. So that's the kind of first milestone, right? And the goal here is to basically make the happy path seamless for developers who know their query IDs upfront. So this is the case where the person who's writing the Dapr agent already knows the Drasi query that they want to subscribe to. And the deliverable here is the overall experience so that the user can write an agent that wakes up when the database changes with just like a few lines of configuration or a few lines of Python metadata that we just saw. So that brings us to milestone 2, right? So that's the kind of like the main part, the main harder question that we are trying to answer here. So And that's going to be the core innovation, right? So what happens if the author of the Dapr agent does not know when they are basically defining the agent at the agent definition time, that which queries will exist at runtime, right? So the goal here is to enable an ambient agent that can discover data streams at runtime and subscribe to them dynamically without code changes, right? So on the Drasi side, we need to look at like how do we enable a smart router kind of scenario. So now this could probably be a reaction or something on the Drasi side that takes a note of all the queries and then possibly exposes them to the Dapr agents so that the Dapr agents can then discover what queries are available and then subscribe to the relevant query. Now for this, the Dapr agents could be using MCP or some other mechanism. So we need to take a look at the Dapr agent side. Like I think they have a concept of tools. So perhaps we can add like a Drasi based tool. I think we can also use their SDKs for that. But effectively, what we need to do is like we need to make the handshake between the Dapr agent and the Drosy reaction seamless so that the Dapr agent is able to explore the available queries, right? So each query is effectively a data stream because it's also going to emit constantly some result dips, right? So it basically is going to tell like, hey, this thing got added to my result list, this thing got updated, or this thing got removed. So all that changes are basically forming a result stream. So each query can be thought of as a data stream, and then we need to basically configure the so think of it this way, right? So the Dapper agent author can be separate from the person who configures the Drasi reaction, because the Dapper agent author could be anyone, like a data scientist, or maybe the end scenario engineer, or maybe let's say if it is, let's say, Amazon.com, right, or some kind of e-commerce company. It could be somebody could be writing a sales agent, somebody could be writing a support agent for the sellers, another one could be writing a support agent for the buyers. So there could be multiple different agents, right? And then on the infrastructure side, people who know the data, like where the databases are, what backend services are, so that person might be writing the Drasi reactions configuration. So that person can then define, okay, these are my 10 queries or 100 queries, right? And for each query, they can maybe give the appropriate description. So that's basically effectively the documentation that the Dapr agents can use to figure out, okay, this is the query of interest to me, and I can subscribe to updates for that particular query. Does that kind of make sense at a high level? Okay, I will just move along, and if you have questions, we can take them at the end. And just before moving on, I just need to make sure that there's no necessarily like a single right approach here. You can think of whatever approach makes sense to you. If you think there's more than one, just feel free to document your approaches, evaluate the trade-offs, and just write maybe your own recommendation, right? So which one do you think is better? And even if we decide on a different approach later, that's totally fine. We just want to see your thought process. Okay. So yeah, here's what we are looking for in the proposals. Try to show that you've read the code. Don't just say that I've built a reaction. Try to reference specific files. It's interesting to see like when people have mentioned like what their learnings was, how they explored the code base, and of course it's good to know that you've built some new reaction. But I think with the AI agents now being available, writing code has become much more easier. What's more important is like whether you actually understand that code, right? And showing that understanding is key to your proposal. The second part would be to make the design decisions, right? So, for example, whether you would be using the Python for your router or TypeScript or some other language, because I think Trasi has multiple different languages which you could use to write your own Drasi reaction. So that could be one of the design choices. That could be how would you store the routing rules, where would you store them, etc. And what happens if the query does not exist, etc. So these could be some of the questions to think about and maybe possibly try to come up with answers to. And of course, this one important thing I'd like to highlight is unlike many of the other GSOC projects, I think this project is quite open-ended. and it has like risks, right? Because if you think about it, Dapr agents, I think, just recently came with their version 1.0, so it's a pretty new project. And on the Drasi side, we are still a CNCF sandbox project. So both of them are pretty new. Now, when the project is new, it's constantly evolving, right? So we are constantly adding a lot of stuff, updating a lot of stuff. So that kind of adds some risk to the project. And of course, it also is involving two different projects, so that makes it even more hard, right? So it's totally fine to not know everything upfront, and we just want you to be honest about the hard parts. It's not required for you to know everything. Just mention whatever pieces you think are hard, and then mention how are you planning to basically mitigate that risk during the GSOC project period, right? So maybe you can add that, okay, I'm going to spend a few days on this particular portion of the code base trying to understand this, and maybe this I'll set up like these kind of meetings with the mentors, etc. So those could be some of the things you could do to mitigate that risk. Um, and the other, like as I already mentioned, the one hard part is like you need to make changes and get those accepted in to do two different projects, right? So one would be the Drasi side, the other is the Dapr agent side. So it'd be good if you can also join their Discord channel, try to ping the secondary mentor from the Dapr agent side. They wouldn't necessarily be present in all of the weekly or whatever meetings that we have once the GSOC project starts, but they can provide some help or some guidance on uh, the Dapr side of changes when we start making them. And finally, as I said, like basically, we have tried to we should try to break this project into three milestones. The first milestone is the foundation. So that basically enables the static path. Now, the static path is where the Dapr agent author knows the query of the Drasi that they want to subscribe to. So let's make that as the first milestone, right? Because that gives you an easy goal, a low-hanging fruit that you can achieve. Then the second part is a bit more tricky, which is how do we enable uh, runtime discovery for Dapr agents so that they are able to discover Drasi queries and then subscribe to them at runtime. And the key thing there would be that if possible, we would like to have a scenario where the Dapr agents can go to sleep, right? So they don't need to be running constantly. Drasi is the only piece of infrastructure that runs constantly and monitors all of the data sources and uh, pushes the messages that can then be consumed by Dapr agents, and Dapr agents can be spun up whenever there is a relevant message for their query to which they're subscribed to. So the final milestone can then be like a demo scenario, right? So you could basically build an ambient agents demonstration. Now this could be totally up to you. It depends on your comfort level. You could just write one agent. You could write multiple agents. You could build a scenario around it. So this totally depends on what you want to do as an example, showcase of what you've built, right? So once you have the dynamic scenario built under the second milestone, you can basically use that to build an example demo as the third milestone. So overall, for the proposal, I would say try to scope it in a realistic manner. So the M1 is foundation. The second milestone is the more where the most depth is. So try to allocate time based on that. And then M3 is totally up to you. Whatever demonstration you want to build using the ambient agents framework here. All right. Yeah. So let's go over like some of the red flags or gaps that we've seen in proposals. So let's say, like, don't mention that some of the reaction already exists or what exists. Let's say, for example, if you just mention that the post type of pub reaction exists, right? That is not sufficient, right? Because, and we need to mention that why it's not sufficient because, for example, it cannot set the cloud event source type, right? So, and we need to look at like what Dapr agents would need for that milestone one. So that would have and even if because the time is pretty short right now, I think the timeline closes maybe this coming weekend. So even if you're not able to find out everything, just document whatever are open-ended things that you still need to figure out. And when you will figure out those, just mention that in your proposal. That should be fine. We don't need to like make the actual references to the code in the repos. Uh, maybe you can just write like whatever you observed in the code base in your own words. So that would be much more appreciated. Uh, yeah, that's most of what I had. Let's see. Yeah, and one more thing is like we are planning to add like an AI policy to our project. So we are not anti-AI. So there's like a lot of tools available today, like GitHub Copilot, Cursor, Cloud Code. All of them are welcome. We use them ourselves as well. But we are also adding this new policy that we just need you to disclose AI usage. Maybe in your Git commits, you can add like the assisted by or helped by or co-authored by, etc. Some kind of commit message there. The more important part here is that whenever you're basically submitting a PR, you should be able to explain every line of code during the PR review, right? So even though we may or may not ask you to explain everything, but ideally you should understand everything because the goal for GSOC is also for you to learn how the projects work and basically improve on your programming skills, right? And secondly, about the proposal, we highly recommend that the proposal is written by you. So we can also later have conversations with you about your decisions. So if you cannot explain the reasoning behind your choices, that then is a problem, right? Finally, what we evaluate is not your typing speed. We don't care if you use autocomplete or AI agents to type it. That's totally fine. What we do value is like your design thinking and your understanding of the code bases. If you, for example, if English is not your first language, you can of course use AI to polish the prose. So that's totally fine, but you should understand whatever you're writing. I will drop a link to the AI policy that's under review right now. It'll be merged soon, but you can take a look at it. It's just a few lines in a markdown file. I'll just share that in a minute. Yeah, and so the proposal deadline is coming up pretty soon. It's on 31st March, 6 p.m. UTC, and you're supposed to apply through the GSOC platform. And I hope you know about that. And then I would say avoid submitting at the last minute in case there's any glitches with the portal. And Casper is the co-mentor from the Dapr agent side. So he's also available on the Dapr Discord. That's pretty much what I had, and I can take some questions now. Yeah, go ahead, Shanzita.
I'm kind of confused on one thing. Is it like one person each project?
Sorry, go ahead. Can you say that again?
I'm kind of confused about the GSOC policy. Is it one person per project?
Yes. So I think we will be so at least for the Drasi plus Dapr reactions project, we will just have one person working on that.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Yeah, go ahead, Fakir. Uh, Fakir, if you're saying something, we cannot hear you.
Second. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, your voice is a bit low, but I think I can hear you.
Just 1 second. I
Yeah,
think now you would be able to hear me. All
yeah.
right. So yeah, so I was the one who asked basically that post Dapr PubSub in the our last meeting. So yeah, that proposal guideline has cleared that part for the first milestone quite a bit. I just had a question regarding second milestone. I haven't explored it in much detail myself, but just a question on top of my head. So I've what I have done so far is run the agent runner on my local K3D cluster, and I have been monitoring it through the Redis streams and Digagrid dashboard. So one of the problem that that I'm currently foreseeing is basically in this MCP part, if we are subscribing new routes at runtime, and those subscriptions will of course cause new workflow runs. So there would be an observability gap on how these workflows are being linked to each other. For example, let me give you an example of a workflow where an agent is supposed to basically do its work and then leave uh, next step for human in the loop, and the human will confirm something, and that stream will it will basically create a message of approved in the another stream that we have subscribed to, and this will basically trigger a new workflow run that I have understood so far, because the way that wiring of routes is being done in the Dapr agents, it is always running a new workflow run.
Okay.
So how are we supposed to maintain this observability of multiple workflow runs that are basically a single workflow process? That's something I'm looking into right now.
Okay. So you're saying even if, let's say, we define a Dapr workflow, so that workflow definition may be instantiated multiple times, right? So you may have multiple instances of the workflow, which can be called as workflow runs, right?
Yeah. So basically, each stream that we are subscribing to, it will be basically causing a new workflow run with a separate ID.
Right. Okay. So then the question is, so what is your question about like Drasi being able to trigger that? So you're saying like there might be multiple different runs. So how
Yeah,
would we
exactly. So
control?
basically, let me give you an example with a single workflow. So basically, an agent was supposed to close their ticket, but even after the closing of ticket, I still want the human to approve that it has been successfully completed or not.
Okay.
So what I do basically is, what my agent basically does is it completes its task, and then it subscribes to another topic, let's say human approvals, and
Okay.
it waits for human approval message. Now
Okay.
human approval message subscription has basically, when if a message arrives in that, it will create a separate workflow run. That's what I'm expecting it to be. Am I
Okay. Okay.
thinking about it correctly?
I think this is a question for Dapper agents. Honestly, I don't know the answer to this right now. I will have to look it up. But I think this is more on how the internals of Dapper agents work, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
It's more like they work, the agent start and the agent die. And
Hmm.
it's like a by default constraint on Dapper side. I'm also looking at that. So I think we have to more focus on the state. Like the only thing which is maintainable is state. We can't do anything with Dapper agents. It's already mostly defined. So it's also like we have to plan based on like what have Dapper constraints, because we can't say them to change this, and we have to work around the constraints. Like one of the constraint I found uh, is that uh,
But yeah, I think Fakir, that's an interesting question, right? So while Tarandeep comes up with the extra constraint that he's mentioning, I think either I need to go back and take a look at the Dapper agents internals and then get back to you, or try posting this question on their Discord. There you might be able to get a better answer for this. But that
Sure.
should still not impede you from uh, like working on, let's say, the Drasi side of things, right? So the handshake between Drasi and operations should still be feasible, right? So or do you think it's going to be a blocker?
Yeah, it won't be a blocker. It would be a non-blocker from implementation perspective. It's just an observability gap that I'm foreseeing. I'm not even sure that it exists or not. I'll leave this message for Casper, and he will assure this thing.
Okay, yeah, and just post in the regular Dapper Discord, right? So even if Casper is busy, there might be other maintainers of the Dapper project who might be
Yeah,
able to answer.
sure.
Okay, any more questions?
sir, I want to know more about the demo. Like, what are you expecting the workflow like? For example, we have simulation, how it's work like. I am not clear specifically. What
Yeah.
in we?
So, like, think of it. So, here's the goal for the final milestone, right? So, and um, that's the least important part. The first milestone is like the foundation. The second milestone is the most crucial part, and I think That's the focal point of the project where you'll be spending the most amount of time. Third milestone is like the cherry on the top, cherry on the cake, right? So it's like the ambient agent demo. Now, the goal here is to prove the value of the ambient AI, maybe with a clean database-driven scenario. An example could be, let's say, a proactive support lead agent, right? So maybe you have a Postgres database that stores customer tickets. Now, you could have a Drasi query that monitors for tickets that are marked as critical with a priority status as critical, right? So there's a column in the database which says ticket priority, and maybe that whenever that value, the column is set to critical for a particular row, that means that particular entry gets added to the Drasi's continuous query result set. Now, when there is no such ticket, right? So we want that the Dapr support agent should be sleeping. And whenever the user inserts a new ticket into the Postgres, Drasi should be able to detect that in the Postgres and maybe send it through this router to the appropriate agent, and the agent wakes up. The agent could get that event maybe using whatever tool, and then it can use the tool to fetch more details, or maybe use not just the Trusty tool, maybe some other tools, maybe do some demo work or whatever, try to resolve that ticket. So I think the deliverables for this particular milestone could be a Docker compose YAML file or something that starts up a Postgres database with some sample data, not necessarily just Postgres, but some kind of database with some data, maybe some SQL script that simulates the creation of a priority ticket or something, and maybe like a document or tutorial kind of thing, right? So that explains how do you walk through with this particular demo. Does that kind of answer your question?
Yes, I asked because like we plan one few things, but when we try to demo, like there are many few things like I found the Dapper constraints missing. So when we go to the demo, like we simulate the every step, so it's more clear. Okay, there these issue can be happens. So it's
Yeah.
more easy to trade off, compare trade-offs.
Right. So you're saying like even you may not be able, like even if you write down a demo scenario right now, maybe once you start implementing, you may discover other issues. Is that?
Yes,
Yeah. Yeah. So that's
yes.
totally fair. Just like for milestone 3, you can just mention that this is like the scenario that you think of right now. Like things might change between today and I think the coding period starts at the end
Yes,
of May or early June, somewhere around that, right? So
yes,
things
sir.
might change because both the projects are also pretty new and they are changing rapidly. So
Yes,
that's
sir.
fine. Even if in milestone 1 and milestone 2, also if there's changes, that's fine. Just write things based on your understanding as of now, and then that should be good.
Yes, sir. It's just I try to make these things standardized because if with every change we need to change everything again, so it's not that like we want to give a good experience. So it's just I think like when I think of architecture, I try to make as many things we can standardize. So with as both repo are developing, so these things should work even if they are developing. So this is just my
Yeah, yeah, that's a good thought.
yes.
Cool.
Plus, I'm seeing in
Yeah.
this we are working more on Dapr side because the agent, the state management, like we have
No, I
already.
would the reason why the primary mentor is from the Drasi side is let me actually scroll back here. So the reason why the primary mentor is from the Drasi side is because especially in milestone 2, right? So the main work will be on the Drasi side. So even if you
Hmm,
look at milestone 1, so let's go back here. So here, this whole reaction for milestone 1 is on the Drasi side. Here you just need to
hmm.
add the Drasi trigger kind of things, right?
Yes,
So
sir.
even in milestone 1, you'll observe the most of the changes are on the Drasi side. And now on the milestone 2 side, I think the smart router stuff needs to come only on the Drasi side. The Dapr
Yes,
agent should ideally work with minimal changes. Probably we just need to add like the Python models and make things easy for them to subscribe to the Drasi or the Drasi kind of tool that you expose using the new thing that you build here. So the basically you need to add that capability into Dapr. But I think the significant portion of code would be checked in into the Drasi side of things. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir. Actually, it clear quite a things.
So I think like most of the changes on the Dapr side might be some extension, some configuration, some Python models, Pydantic models, whatever. But I think most of the bigger code changes would probably be on the Drasi side. The smart router itself would be on the Drasi side. Probably it'll be like a Drasi reaction, right? Which not only just acts as a regular reaction, but also tries to do all of the smart routing that is needed for the Dapr agents.
Okay, sir. Actually, by default, when we think all over the things, it's like more like on Dapper side to be easier. But as you said, that we need more side on the Rasi side. So this change a few things I need to recheck my architecture.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Sorry, it got a bit delayed, but hopefully I've given you some context within time.
Thank
Yeah, there's
you.
still like a few more days to revise your proposals and try to submit it like slightly before the deadline.
Thank you a lot, sir, for this session. We really appreciate.
Yeah, and even between now and the deadline, if you have more questions, post them on the Discord. I'll try to answer whenever I can. Yeah, and we have I'll try to upload this video and the second instance or the second sessions video tomorrow. That'll happen tomorrow morning. I'll upload that to YouTube as well in case there's some other material covered, but mostly I'll just try to cover the same material and if there's any questions from the attendees.
Yes.
Cool. All right. Yeah, if there are no more questions, that's all for now. I'll see you guys on Discord and maybe in the session tomorrow. But yeah, and if even if you are not able to attend the session, I'll upload the video, so don't worry about that because I'm trying to cover multiple time zones here. And if you have any questions, please post them on Discord. Yes, Shanzita, you have a question?
I was assigned for a PR in GitHub for the like Python SDK problem, so I submitted. So, but like I'm like kind of confused, like how long it would take for getting some reviews.
Yeah, I'll try to get some people. So right now, like the team is a bit busy. There's a bunch of stuff going on. But yeah,
I
don't worry
see.
about like getting the PR. So even though you have made the efforts, right? So that also counts. And don't worry about the PR. Like right now, the time is pretty short. So I'll say focus on the proposal. If you get
Okay.
some time, polish your PR. I'll try to review it if possible.
Okay.
But yeah, even if your PR is not merged by the time of the proposal submission, like just the number of PRs merged is not the criteria that by which we will evaluate.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. All right. Okay. Thank you all for your time. Thank you for your interest in Drasi. Uh, if there's no more questions, I'll see you later then. Thank you.
Thank you. Mhm.